Hey everyone, welcome to the IBM FusionCast. Today is October 4th, 2022. This is episode 6. I should probably write down the episode number before we start because I never seem to remember it. But we've kind of got some news today that we're going to share with you. Hopefully, if you're seeing this, you've already heard. If you haven't, then let us be the ones to kind of bring the good news. It's pretty cool stuff that we're very excited about. So let's get into talking about the big news, which was announced this morning at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. So the news is that IBM Storage, the IBM Storage brand, has brought on board from Red Hat a couple of really, really important assets that we are going to now be incorporating into Fusion and making part of the broader IBM portfolio. So we are bringing in Red Hat Ceph and also Red Hat OpenShift Data Foundation, or ODF. Those two components are moving into IBM, including the teams that support them. So we're bringing the development resources on board, the product management and marketing folks, some support folks. There'll be more detail, in the next couple of months about who specifically and where, but we are bringing the folks over to join the team. Obviously, we've been working very closely with them since the acquisition, but now we're kind of formalizing and transitioning them into IBM. And we're also going to be moving kind of go-to-market and sales motion for those products to IBM. So going forward, Ceph will be an IBM product. Now, as we'll talk about in the next one, it's going to continue to be open source. We are fully committed to upstream first, open source, and I'll show a little bit more about that on the next slide. But this is a pretty big deal for a bunch of reasons, which we'll talk about. But before I go on, Pete, you've been on kind of both sides here. You were at Red Hat when the acquisition happened. So give me your perspective on this news.
Yeah, this is obviously this is very big news. And I think what this is really going to do is it's going to bring together two already awesome storage portfolios, software-defined storage portfolios, into one organization within IBM. And what's really exciting about this is the choice points of technology now that we will have available to us, the breadth of that, but also the depth. When you start thinking about global data sharing and you start thinking about, federated namespaces and, just the richness that Ceph itself brings, but also, Ceph at the core of ODF. And then, of course, Fusion wrapped around that. It's really going to bolster our offerings, particularly as we look, to enter into, the public cloud market. I think it's going to be a stand-apart offering on all of the various public clouds.
Yeah, I was on an analyst briefing call this morning, and Brent Compton from Red Hat, who runs the data services team, described the origin of Ceph really well. He said, Ceph was born in the cloud for the cloud. It was conceived originally actually for a service provider, so they could provide autonomously healing, highly scalable, unified storage that provided file, block, and object, and be able to deliver that into a Kubernetes environment. And thus Ceph was born, and now we are extremely excited to take this current instantiation of the technology and bring it into the portfolio. So really, really cool stuff. So as I mentioned a minute ago, we are committed to open source. I mean, IBM has always been very committed to open source. We've been a massive contributor to a lot of open source projects and initiatives over the years. That's not going to change. It's only going to improve. So these will remain 100% open source and upstream first. So that's not going to change. And Red Hat customers can continue renewing and purchasing these products with their OpenShift and OpenStack solutions. So that is also going to remain unchanged. We're, trying to ensure that this is, not disruptive to any customers on either side. In terms of continuing to support the open source community, ODF, Rook, Ceph, and Nuba development at IBM will continue again to be open source first and upstream first. And the teams transferring to IBM will continue to be very active in those communities. So, we're not looking to kind of suppress any of that community involvement or any of the kind of awesome tribal nature of some of these technologies. We want to really embrace it and leverage it for innovation and expansion. So that's another thing that's super, super important about this opportunity and this kind of move.
And the thing that's key about this, Randy, is, we're not talking about necessarily brand new technology here either. Your point about what Brent was saying about Ceph, Ceph has a long heritage going all the way back to 2011, when it was first, part of a PhD thesis. And, you look at the various parts of the software-defined portfolio that we have, these are tools, these are software-defined platforms that have been around a while, so they're proven. And that's the key point here, is that you can trust that they're going to work. And, the previous slide you talked about, we're going to continue to be very active in the community. We'll be at KubeCon. Feel free to come and find us. We really think that this just bolsters the offerings across the board.
Yeah, for sure. And it also gives us some other great advantages. And for both organizations, right, for IBM and Red Hat, for one side, from one element, looking at the opportunity for, data services and storage offerings that we can take into the marketplace, Red Hat is first and foremost a platform company, right? So OpenShift and OpenStack and Ansible, that's really the core. That's what built Red Hat. That's what the business really thrives and runs on. So this really allows Red Hat to kind of focus and hyper focus on continuing to be best in class for hybrid cloud delivery platforms, building out that ecosystem, of which obviously IBM is a big part, but there are others, of course. So it's a great opportunity for Red Hat to do that. It gives us, IBM, access to the Red Hat marketplace and the Red Hat customer base and installed base as a way to, cultivate additional opportunities for data services. And it ultimately just accelerates the hybrid cloud, software-defined storage, mission at IBM. So we've been fully committed to SDS for, some time now. This gives us additional ammunition and capabilities and IP that we can use to really accelerate the realization of this vision. And again, as I've said a bunch of times, a big part of the reason why we acquired Red Hat and why we brought, these technology stacks together. This is really kind of an important step, towards that. So
what's interesting about that too, Randy, is, and actually this slide kind of speaks to what I'm about to say, is, if you're thinking about edge to core to cloud architectures, the question comes up, like, why software defined? Why is that so important? Well, when you're dealing with these distributed types of environments, these hybrid multi-cloud environments that, could be at the edge, could be in your core data center, could be a private cloud, could even be public cloud, and giving you that portability and transportability across all of those different environments, you can't really do that with traditional monolithic hardware systems. You really have to have an agile software infrastructure that can be configured almost as if it's infrastructure as code. I know that's a popular term these days, but you really need to have that software infrastructure to be able to provide you that flexibility to be able to support the different needs between edge, core, and cloud.
Yeah, absolutely. And from a customer perspective, and of course, whenever we undertake, a change like this or a significant, event like this or decision like this, we obviously kind of look at it from the customer's perspective first and foremost. And there's a lot of benefits to be had here. So ODF is the most popular operator that's deployed with OpenShift. Probably not surprisingly, everybody needs data services. So now that ODF can be incorporated into Fusion, we can really augment the capabilities of ODF and add additional functionality in terms of enterprise grade, data protection, cyber resilience, very powerful cataloging and metadata curation and management. So it really takes the core ODF value proposition and augments it and adds more to it. So bringing them together really kind of provides customers with the opportunity to get an even more robust and more capable offering. It's also going to give us an opportunity to take Ceph in some new directions, right? So Ceph has been specifically supporting OpenShift and OpenStack, obviously, for the past several years. But, there's been a lot of, customer requests, I know, to Red Hat over the years to support, other use cases beyond just the, clustered OpenShift. So this is a great way, again, now with IBM taking the Ceph development team and the development, mission on board to really accelerate that unique software-defined storage capability and feature set into enterprise data centers and make it available for consumption by hyperscalers, service providers, really anyone who wants or needs the flexibility of that, protocol independent, location independent, highly fluid data environment.
Yeah.
So in terms of benefits of Red Hat, again, Red Hat can now really sharpen its primary focus on hybrid cloud with OpenShift, which is, again, the bread and butter, sort of OpenShift or of Red Hat and why they're the industry leader. Red Hat can now better balance their go-to-market resources to execute their strategies by shifting, again, some of the storage and data services offerings to IBM, allowing them to really, again, laser focus on that platform deployment storyline and narrative. And we really become a key partner who can also, with the capacity and the IP portfolio that we bring to the table now, we can really enhance offerings that Red Hat's going to be delivering in terms of additional capabilities baked into OpenShift or made available to OpenShift. There's lots of really interesting things going on right now with edge computing and, small form factor deployments and single node deployments and all kinds of cool stuff that we will now be able to play a more active and more directly engaged role in, which is really cool. So I think it's going to be cool for, Red Hat to be able to tap more directly into the vast, IBM IP portfolio and data services and computing and networking and, kind of everything else we have in the inventory, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So some benefits for us, certainly this is great for our roadmap. One of the things, and, Pete kind of touched on this, is we are, fully committed to aggressively pushing into public cloud, providing platforms for data mobility and workload mobility across multiple public clouds, either as, fully managed auto provisionable services or as client managed services running in shared or dedicated infrastructure. So we want to be able to give customers the flexibility to deploy however, wherever, whenever they like, using, again, Kubernetes and OpenShift as the, lingua franca of all those different workloads and the environments in which that happens. We think it's going to accelerate cloud adoption by offering, storage and data management solutions in with hybrid cloud. So, cloud adoption, obviously for all clouds, but certainly for IBM's cloud. I mean, not lost in all this is that IBM is also a public cloud provider. So we want to be able to, provide enhanced offerings to our cloud customers as well, and deliver some really advanced capabilities. And really for container native, and software defined storage across protocols, this gives us, again, a lot of new assets that we can bring to bear in that domain. So we can leverage, for example, a couple of the questions that came up on the analyst call, now that you have these in your portfolio, it doesn't seem like a quantum leap of faith to think about some interesting integration opportunities with Flash and, Virtualize and some of the other things that we already have to attack some really interesting workload domains. And that's true, right? So there's some great, opportunities. And really, you're starting to see some of that with Fusion. Fusion, you could sort of think of almost as the, the proof point, right? So Fusion is where we've already incorporated and embedded ODF, and now we'll be able to even further extend the integration of ODF and accelerate our adoption on public cloud. So that's pretty cool.
And what's interesting, Randy, is, the announcement was made this morning, and certainly the questions are coming up. Well, what does this mean from a competitive perspective? Like, where does this place IBM in the grand scheme of things? And I firmly believe that this is a huge leapfrog forward ahead of the competition for container native storage. Why? It's because of what we talked about earlier, the breadth of data services that we are able to offer because of the fact that we're IBM and we have this rich technology portfolio. I mean, you already mentioned it, Randy. Talking about ransomware, talking about cybersecurity, talking about the ability to do data cataloging, as well as data placement on a global basis. There's not a lot of other container native storage solutions out there that can talk about that kind of breadth of offering.
Yeah, and you teed up the next slide perfectly. So thanks for that, Pete. You're a good straight man. So if we look at kind of where the portfolio was, prior to this morning and sort of where it's going to be going forward, for the high level sort of buckets or classifications of workloads we're looking at, whether it's unified software defined storage for OpenShift and Kubernetes, whether it's more broadly hybrid cloud, distributed file and object for AI and data intensive kind of data science-y workloads, or whether it's object storage, either for high volume or high throughput, we will have you covered in a way that no other vendor can. So to Pete's point, there is no other vendor in the space that has the breadth and depth of capability to be able to attack all of those workloads and all of those use cases from a unified, easily managed, tightly integrated solution stack. So, for example, and I won't read through all of these, but we're kind of simplifying around Fusion as our principal deployment platform for container native and Kubernetes going forward. Ceph will be our kind of general purpose platform for hybrid multi-cloud workloads that are either not fully leveraging containerization or perhaps not yet containerized. It can be sort of a bridge technology to help bring some of those legacy workloads forward into the container native world. For these AI and data intensive workloads, we already have very tight integration with NVIDIA, with DGX, and the architecture of Fusion is already supporting that. We will now be able to leverage Spectrum Scale going forward, and in the future, Ceph as well. Not to be lost in this, and the reason this is important is, there's this perception that initially kind of came up like, well, isn't scale kind of what drives Spectrum Fusion? The answer is still yes, right? Scale plays an absolutely critical role in the core fundamental architecture of Fusion. So we're not taking that away, we're augmenting it. By adding ODF and more broadly deploying ODF, it gives us a wider and deeper range of workloads and kind of domains that we can attack with Fusion. So it's not an either or, it's an and. So that's very important to remember. And again, Ceph is going to be a brilliant innovation platform for us going forward. Again, I talked about a minute ago, if you look at what else is in the portfolio in terms of our FlashCore modules, virtualize, some of the other very differentiated solutions we have, it's not a big leap to think about how these things could be pieced together into some really, really interesting appliance form factors and, edge use case form factor. So the sky's the limit in many ways. So although we're kind of simplifying the portfolio, we're also tightly optimizing around these workload categories.
Absolutely. And it's a situation where it truly is 1 + 1 = 3. I mean, when you look at independently Red Hat and IBM and now bringing it together, the synergies that we gain as a result of bringing it together really is a win-win all the way around. So that's how you get to 3 from 1 + 1.
Absolutely. No question. And this is just kind of the last visual. So, if I had to boil all that previous stuff down into kind of a single visual, this is really the vision, right? The vision is OpenShift as the control plane, the deployment platform, the application runtime for, current and future cloud native workloads, a set of standard, easily consumable services built on top of Spectrum Fusion, built on top of Ceph, built on top of Spectrum Scale, consumed as Kubernetes operators and custom resources. So simple, familiar to developers and DevOps people, and all underpinned by our vast ecosystem partnerships and also our vast consulting capability, which we bring to this as well. So we're already, of course, heavily invested with our consulting teams, developing best practices, design patterns, and sort of cloud adoption models built around this concept. So it's really, really exciting. Big day. We're pretty psyched. We've obviously been kind of at this for a while. So to have it finally kind of come out and happen and be made public is pretty cool. So a lot of weekends and late nights, but I think it's well worth it. So I'm going to stop sharing for a second. Let's just kind of wrap up a little bit and grab some comments. So I don't know. I'm excited. I think, since we acquired Red Hat and if you've watched the podcast or you've heard me present, you've heard me say, the reason we bought Red Hat is because it gives us IBM and Red Hat combined the ability to provide that full stack, fully integrated hybrid multi-cloud deployment platform that covers a massively wide range of workloads, supports thousands of open source and commercial software titles and projects, and provides the flexibility, adaptability, agility, cost control, all the things you want in your modernization journey, all the things you want to have with you in your luggage. This has that, and nobody else does. And I will defensively state for the record that nobody else in the industry can offer this. So I'm pretty stoked.
I think you and I can say that with some confidence too, having worked at NetApp and HP Storage, and been around the block, both of us. Storage industry. I mean, that's one of the reasons I came to IBM is because of the portfolio that we have, and it's like our boss Sam Werner says, IBM Storage is one of the best kept secrets out there. Well, we're letting the cat out of the bag with this announcement, and it's the next 4 to 6 months are going to be really exciting.
Yeah, and I mean, I think honestly, we IBM as a storage brand and as kind of a systems brand, we've done amazing things. We've built a great reputation. We have a very solid brand. We have great customers all over the world. We haven't always been the most agile. We're sometimes a little slow on the draw, and we don't quite jump on the trends as they emerge. That's what Red Hat was built on. I mean, Red Hat is aggressive, hungry, very adaptable, and the whole Red Hat service ecosystem around OpenShift, OpenStack, Ceph, ODF, Ansible is all about agility. It's all about rapid, repeatable time to market, and having that sort of flexibility. So that's part of this that also really kind of psychs me up, is that we're bringing a lot of that energy, that sort of viral energy into the IBM brand too, which is going to be awesome, because I think bringing our IP portfolio together with that sort of design ethos and that mentality and that community oriented kind of tribal structure is going to really bring about some incredible things. So, good stuff. All right. So cool. So anyway, that was the news today. We figured good opportunity to kind of talk about it a little bit. So thanks for tuning in. Hopefully this was cool. Hopefully you like it. Hopefully you're excited as we are. If you have any questions, you can reach out to us. Sorry, I'm losing my voice, which is why I'm going up and down. But, Pete and I are available. Reach us on LinkedIn, on Twitter, call us, email us, whatever you want to do, or, talk to your IBM rep. So anyway, thanks again, everyone, for watching, and we will talk to you again soon. Thanks.